been?
So very nice.
I'll hold your hands, they're just like ice.
My mother will start to worry.
Beautiful, what's your hurry?
My father will be pacing the floor.
Listen to the fireplace raw.
So really I'd better scurry.
Beautiful, please don't hurry.
But maybe just a half a drink more.
Put some records on while I pour.
Say, what's in this drink?
No cabs to be had out there.
It's the anti-tracker.
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently experiencing technical difficulty.
Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford, the anti-tracker here. Yes, I know, very odd time for me to stream. It is about 3:25 in the morning for me right now. Just got home from Rise of Skywalker. If you saw the video I posted just a little while ago, we recorded that in the parking lot of the theater. And I figured I'd give you guys a chance to crucify me for actually liking the movie. But now, don't get me wrong. I didn't love the movie. I liked the movie. I think it definitely had some flaws that should have been addressed. It should not have been released in the way it is right now. Because I would give the movie probably between a 6 and a 7 out of 10. I'm not going to give it a hardcore score right now because it's still way too early, and I'll have to see it a couple more times probably. But it could have easily probably been an 8, 9, maybe even a 9.5 if you just addressed a few issues with the film. Mostly involving the editing in the first act of the film was atrocious, and the final resolution of the film, in my opinion, fell short. I think that they were close. They came really close to greatness, but they just didn't have the balls to do what would have had the best payoff. And that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Mrs. Anti-Tracker, if you saw the little reaction video, you know, I know she was kind of hard to hear, but she basically agreed with me. She liked it. She didn't love it. And what the naysayers are saying, I mean, as far as convoluted story, I don't think the story was convoluted at all. I think that the editing was choppy, but maybe people are confusing the two. It wasn't hard to follow what was going on. It was a little too fast paced for the first act. And I think that was because they were JJ was basically trying desperately to set up for the main storyline, the Palpatine story. And the problem is that he didn't have a proper lead-in. I mean, the lead-in to this movie was The Last Jedi, and The Last Jedi was a train wreck, and literally finished off with saying, okay, everybody's dead, there's 20 people left in the Resistance. All right, JJ, have fun with that. And JJ, I think, did a competent job. It could have been better. I'm not saying he did the best possible job, but I think he did a competent job with what he had to work with. To the chat we go for a few minutes. There's not going to be a particularly long live stream. I just thought that while I'm settling down, getting ready for bed, I would hang out with you guys for a few minutes. Thomas was first, says hi. Justin says hello. Mike Richards is here from Columbus, Ohio. Wow, you guys are up early. Yosef says, good day, sir. Or up late, I guess. I told Nerdrotic to pray for you since he needs to talk with you, thinking you will like it. I would love to talk to Nerdrotic. I actually sent him a message on Twitter. I'm hoping he gets it. I would love to be on his Friday Night Tights tonight and fight with him about it if he hated it. I don't know what his opinion is. I have not watched his review or anybody's review because I wanted to go in clean. Still won't work my YouTube app, but watch it on the website. Good. I don't know what's up with your YouTube app. Shomer's here, says greetings. Death Dealer says, I thought you thought it was good movie. I have to do this. He liked it. Abandoned ship. Red alert. All hands on deck. Yeah, I know. I was honestly pleasantly surprised, as was Mrs. Anti-Trekker. Sean says 9:30 a.m. here. I said it was okay last night. Was just a bit underwhelming. Yeah, I would say that's a good way to put it. Especially that final battle, the Star Destroyer fleet that you see in the trailer is involved in the final battle, and that was probably one of the most disappointing parts of the movie. Was that battle? Now, I will say this. They had an in-universe reason why the space horses riding on the surface of a Star Destroyer actually worked. I still think it looks stupid. So I'm not saying it was stupid because of plot or story. I just think it was a bad choice artistically. What about all the MacGuffin chasing? Well, the MacGuffin chasing was definitely there. But I think that a lot of people will appreciate what the MacGuffins are because some of it comes from extended universe Star Wars lore. And that's actually something that I think they did on purpose. And so basically what they were trying to do, Loquacious, is get directions to get to the Sith homeworld in the unknown territories. And that's all extended universe stuff. MLB.deal, the problem is Palpatine is dead. He died at the end of Return of the Jedi. I know. And they kind of sort of, I mean, they don't address it directly except, one of the people in the movie suggests that maybe it had something to do with dark magic and cloning, dark side magic and cloning. And so, like, somehow Palpatine transferred himself into another body or something. He's definitely not his old self. And I will say this, by the way. Palpatine in this was scarier than he ever was before. Palpatine in this was downright disturbing. And so I actually applaud Ian McDermott and J.J. Abrams for the way they treated Palpatine. Because he was freaking scary. All right, folks, 20% off in the Village Riot Gear. Buy 2 farm tools and torches to get anti-tracker effigy. Oh, man, I know. You guys, I'm so afraid, honestly. I know you guys are just kidding around with me, but I am genuinely afraid that a lot of subscribers are going to abandon ship because I like it. Thomas says, if Johnson didn't destroy The Last Jedi, probably would have been better. I would agree. If JJ, I genuinely think, if JJ had a decent lead into this movie, and granted, this is, I know JJ says he had his vision for the trilogy, but the problem, and I'm not going to lay the blame on JJ Abrams, because the problem fits squarely in the lap of Kathleen Kennedy for not planning out a trilogy before you do it. The biggest trilogy of the 21st century, and you're not going to put down a single plan, that is dumb. 10:30 a.m. for me, 11 hours to go. All right, Joseph. Thomas says, I'll be leaving work soon. Wow. So very rare, but I got to see you at the beginning and the end of your shift. Program Thomas Potts so we can hand out your Eagle Moss ship collection since you don't need. Loquacia says, Nerdrotic hated, I think he thought it was even worse than Last Jedi as a movie, though maybe less disrespectful. You know, and I know Odin, when I was on Mead with him, he said it was an objectively bad movie. Now, I think that what he's probably trying to hint at is the jarring editing in the first act. The editing in the first act is horrible. I will say, you should never notice the editing, and I noticed the editing a lot in the first act. That was a genuine problem with the movie. But other than that, it really, I mean, it was beautifully shot. It was, for the most part, well acted. I think the only actor there were two actors that kind of put in a little bit of an off-putting performance. That was Daisy Ridley, I think, kind of phoned it in during some scenes in the movie, and Carrie Fisher. But the problem with Carrie Fisher is all of her dialogue was recycled from deleted scenes from The Last Jedi, and you could tell. You could tell that, because what they would do is find lines that she said that could mean anything and then have everybody around her provide the context so that it made sense. And so they would have her standing with a group of people, and then someone would suddenly make a stupid comment about a droid, and then she would say, well, you should never underestimate droids. Like that, and you could just tell that line, it was taken completely out of context. What about, did the kissy kissy not make you go ew? The kissy kissy I thought was unnecessary, but whatever. Do you think your positive attitude is more that it is better than Last Jedi and true that it is truly that good, or you appreciate that JJ tried to save the trilogy in emergency surgery. I think there's a little bit of that. I think I was specifically watching this movie, and more than probably any other movie I've seen recently, I was really paying attention to what he was trying to do from a storytelling perspective. And I will tell you, when I do my full review, that I'm going to take a couple of days to write this review. It's going to be pretty intense, I think. But my review of this is going to be a direct sequel to the review of The Last Jedi. Some of you may remember this, some of you may not. 2 years ago, I did a video, and this was like the first actually successful video that I did on my channel, I believe. And it was called The Last Jedi Destroys the Star Wars Mythos. That was the name of that video. This one I'm going to probably call The Rise of Skywalker Rebuilds the Star Wars Mythos. That's what JJ was trying to do with this film. He was trying to reestablish the Star Wars mythos. And in fact, let me say this. I don't want to get too much into spoilers unless you guys just want them. But I will tell you that my favorite line in the movie was when when Rey decided at one point to do exactly what Luke did in The Last Jedi. She realized that she was the greatest danger to the galaxy because of her overwhelming force powers. So she went to Ahch-To and decided that she was going to spend the rest of her life in exile on Ahch-To, just like Luke did, so that she couldn't be a negative force in the galaxy. She was visited by Luke's Force Ghost, and he flat out told her, I was wrong. And I like that because that, to me, was a statement apologizing to the fans for what they did to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Zachary said, I'm glad you liked it, Anti-Checker. I was worried with what the critics have been saying. I'll be honest with you. The critics didn't like it, but at the same time, the critics loved The Last Jedi. So, yeah. Tom says, Palpatine is alive like the Borg Queen lives. Well, Palpatine is, he is... Wow, he's hard to describe. He is almost like the Borg Queen. He looks like he's more machine than man in this. And at least until a certain point in the movie, which I'm not going to give away, but he is extremely disturbing in this. Space Horses and No Ghost Riders in the Sky song, totally unwatchable. Says Herman Schmeckelbeck. Yes. Herman Schmeckelbeck did not appear in the film. Most important question, does my boy Jar Jar make a showing? No, Jar Jar is not in the film. I'm sorry. But the Ewoks do make a brief cameo. But isn't the whole Sith dagger pointing to an exploded, crashed Death Star kind of stupid? Well, they don't explain how a big chunk of the Death Star survived. The Sith dagger pointing to it, that was a little odd, and it's and Luke throws a couple of euros in. Thank you so much, my friend. It says, hello there. Here we go. Number 18. You got it. Let's put number 18 up there, and then we'll talk about that Sith dagger.
I have to save that old person. Sam! Well, thank you very much for helping me steal this.
So, the Sith dagger and stuff. Now, this is actually an interesting and actually probably one of the reasons I appreciate the movie more than some others, is that one thing I did not like about The Last Jedi, and it's something similar that I didn't like in The Phantom Menace, but they didn't do it as bad as they did in The Last Jedi, is the idea of de-spiritualizing Star Wars. Taking away the magic and making it almost like they made the Force into an atheistic natural force in The Last Jedi, where the Force is literally just an unfeeling, uncaring energy field. It doesn't have intent. It doesn't have a personality or anything. But in the original trilogy and stuff, it was always about the living Force. It was about this supernatural, magical force, right? And this movie, I think, was trying to reinforce the magic of Star Wars. And I actually kind of appreciate that, because Star Wars is supposed to be about wizards and warriors and good and evil and all that stuff. And so I think that JJ was, and so you say, oh, come on, a dagger points the way. It's magic. I mean, that's all it is. It's magic. Now, Now, as far as the Death Star surviving that chunk of Death Star surviving the explosion, yeah, I know we can argue about the physics of that all day, but Star Wars has never given a damn about physics. Let's be real. Josh, Andy Trigger liked it. It must be he drank the JJ Kool-Aid while watching the movie. Actually, no, I had Mellow Yellow Zero while watching the movie. I put Palpatine H on hemorrhoids. By the way, the true story. During the movie, there's a moment that me and Mrs. Anti-Checker both busted out laughing, even though we were in a packed theater, and we're the only ones that actually laughed at this because of the kind of crap that we do on this live stream and stuff. And that is when Palpatine looked at Rey and said, "Do it." Yeah. If people dump you over your views they're doing what the SJWs do. I agree, Thomas, but people do that. People are fickle like that. They think, oh my God, he doesn't hate it, he's bad. Looks like everyone is jumping ship. You're under 10K again. Stop it, Josh. The problem with this trilogy, Antracker, is that there was no plan at all. JJ did his best with what he had. At least I hope. That's what I feel, Zachary, and that's why I say I think the blame goes squarely on Kathleen Kennedy, because she is the one that should have had a plan before The Force Awakens began. Day one of filming, they should have known how The Rise of Skywalker was going to end. Andy Drecker bashing the dead. I'm not bashing the dead. They did the best with what they could. Honestly, I would have probably had Leia in the film a little bit less because it was a little jarring whenever she was on screen. Abrams is the one that killed Trek with Star Trek Beyond. Actually, Abrams did not make Star Trek Beyond. Abrams made Star Trek 2009 and Into Darkness. He did not make Star Trek Beyond. And Star Trek Beyond is an absolute abortion of a movie. I think Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness, I view them as kind of Star Trek action mode. And they're all right for what they are. They're not as good as classic Trek by far, but they're entertaining movies. Star Trek Beyond is an absolute insult to the legacy of Trek. But JJ had almost nothing to do with it, other than the fact that Bad Robot was the production company. But JJ did not direct that movie. Also, doesn't Rey being so OP and the Force Ghost having so much power kind of destroy all stakes? What's the advantage of even being alive in that universe? That's actually something that I thought about, is that, yeah, the Force Ghosts seem to be just fine. And I don't understand that. There's a few Force Ghosts in this movie, and yeah, they can interact with the physical world. They seem to, I don't know. As far as destroying the stakes, there was a little bit of that. First of all, and here's the thing about Rey being OP. The biggest problem with Rey being OP, and I've complained about this over and over and over, she beats Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens. And so you're thinking, oh, come on, if the big fight is going to be between Rey and Kylo Ren, who the hell cares? However, the big fight is not between Rey and Kylo Ren. There is a fight between Rey and Kylo Ren, but that's not the big fight. CDH says Plan 9 from Outer Space, worst movie ever. Plan 9 from Outer Space is so bad, though, it's incredibly fun to watch. Sean says the final Palpy battle was set up for the return of Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan, Anakin. I think that was what fans were waiting for. That would have been cool. And I will tell you that, well, see, I don't want to spoil anything. So for anybody that might not have seen it, and if you're thinking about seeing it, I don't want to spoil anything. Because there are some things that they're clearly fan service, but there's such good fan service that it gives you Peter tingles. We get I have a bad feeling. Yes, we have and by the way, unlike The Last Jedi cop-out, that we had a good, genuine, I have a bad feeling about this in this film. And it was Lando that gives the line. And there's Luke's €2. Thank you again, Luke. I truly appreciate it, especially on an oddball time stream like this one. It kills Anakin being the chosen one and makes his sacrifice and redemption at the end of Return of the Jedi completely pointless in my eyes. I understand that, and there's some truth to that, but the thing is that was going to happen no matter what when they were doing sequels. If they were, because here's the problem, is that, and this was actually, I think, from the beginning, the idea of doing a sequel series that was so close in time frame to the originals was a mistake. They should have set it like hundreds of years in the future and a new evil rises or something. so that you don't get the feeling that Anakin was just Anakin's rise and fall and rise was a waste. But the problem with that is that was already in the works. You seem to be one of the few that actually like it. Does a Wookiee eat Baby Yoda? If not a good movie. No, I never see a Wookiee eat a Baby Yoda. There are a couple of porgs in it, however. KG says, la la la, not listening or reading the chat, just popping in to thank you for your honest reaction. I'm seeing it tonight, so I'm going to take off before I see any spoilers. Take care. All right, KG, and I know you're not listening, but thank you. What looked cooler, Andy Jagger? The Enterprise rising out of the ocean or the Star Destroyer rising like they show in the trailer? The Star Destroyer rising actually made a certain amount of sense as far as what that Star Destroyer was, what it represents. And so I'm not going to, but that would be a spoiler to talk about what it was, how it was rising, and what that was all about. Well, let's see. Let's summarize. You liked Palpatine surviving for no reason, the Death Star wreckage popping out of existence, and as Palpatine's fleet and army, the 234 MacGuffins force turned into magic. No, you're putting words in my mouth. I acknowledge that there are problems with this movie. Palpatine surviving for no reason. Well, first of all, they give a kind of speculative reason, but I don't like that they don't explain how Palpatine's really back. So that is a problem. The Death Star wreckage popping out of existence. It doesn't pop out of existence. I think what you mean is that it pops into existence because it shouldn't be there. However, that being said, I will say this, and Luke, you're European. You see big bombs going off in buildings and stuff, and then afterwards you see huge chunks of the building still standing. Look at Europe post-World War II. Cities were bombed to the Stone Age, and yet whole sections of buildings were still standing. As crazy as it may sound, it is possible that a substantial chunk of the Death Star blew off in one piece during the explosion. Yeah, we didn't see that, but of course the visual effects were incapable of showing anything like that. As for Palpatine's fleet and army, the army is not explained, and I would like some explanation for that. It's kind of just explained just based on the location. But I wanted more detail because they get into some, like I said, they get into some extended universe lore stuff that I don't know enough to fill in the blanks. And that's one of the problem where I think the movie should have been longer to fill in some of this. Like, who are the Sith? And when I say that, I mean the people that live on the Sith world. Who are these people? I don't know. They're in this movie, but I don't know who the hell they are. The 234 MacGuffins, there are not 230 MacGuffins. There are actually 3 MacGuffins. The Force turned into magic. The Force is supposed to be magic. And so, yes, that is something I did like, is the Force being magic again. Off topic, but it's a male witch called a warlock. As far as I know, yes. Says, 82-year-old Billy D. Williams was great. He was actually, I was surprised. He was actually pretty good. The Bezopoulos says JJ is a hack. He fills seats with flashy mediocrity. First of all, I think we use the word hack way too much. Is JJ the greatest director of all time? No. Is he a competent director? Yes. Does he do flashy movies? Yes. But guess what? Every Star Wars movie is a flashy movie. Like it or hate it, Star Wars has always been a flashy series of movies. It's called freaking Star Wars, not Star Trek, all right? Star Wars is not supposed to be intellectual, let's sit back and discuss the human condition. Star Wars is supposed to be wizards and laser swords and space battles. Use dagger as a secret map. Hey, I saw this in the Goonies. Chewbacca then screams, "Hey, you guys!" Actually, I've never seen the Goonies, so maybe that's why it didn't bother me. DJ said on a stream that you would like it. Well, I guess he was right. I didn't love it, but I did like it. And please qualify that. Do understand that not everything is the best or the worst. This was, on the high side of average, but it was not a great film. Without what you expect from magic, it has rules. They just threw the rules out the window and did what the heck they wanted. How are you saying that they threw the... Now, granted, here's the thing, Luke. First of all, I disagree with you. I don't think that they just threw the rules out the window. I think Rian Johnson threw the rules out the window, and JJ was simply trying to reestablish them. That's the problem. JJ had a broken universe to work with. Now, And I know some people have bitched because there are 2 new force powers introduced in this film. Actually, only 1 new force power if you happen to have seen episode 7 of The Mandalorian, because one of them was introduced in The Mandalorian. But these 2 now people are complaining left and right. Oh my God, they could never do that with the Force. You do realize that until Empire Strikes Back, people couldn't do telekinesis with the Force. Until Return of the Jedi, people couldn't shoot lightning with the Force. Right? There have been force power introductions throughout the franchise. So I don't have a problem with them being new force powers as long as they're not like just completely stupid like in Superman rebuilding the Great Wall of China power. Can I only get a 15-second? I can only get 15 seconds of parking lot video, and it starts buffering. I can't get beyond that. The live stream is completely smooth. I don't know what's wrong with that, Paladin, because Thomas Potts actually had a very similar problem. He could only play the first five seconds of it. However, most people seem to have been able to play it fine. I could play it fine from both my mobile and the computer. Continuum says, good morning. How you doing? I enjoyed J.J. Abrams in Deep Space Nine when he played the Vorta. I just wish he could take off the makeup. Wow. That's just mean. I might not agree with everything you say. However, I see that it comes from your heart, and I won't unsub. Same with Bird of Prey and Captain Foley. Yeah, well, that's the thing. And that's all I ask people to do is just be honest about it. If you disagree with me, I'm okay with that. I really am. However, and we can talk about some stuff like the stuff Luke said. I think Luke misunderstood what I was saying, and that's why I went line by line through what he said. And I don't think that JJ threw out the rules. I think that the rules were thrown out on him. Jar Jar Abrams' bad reboot is a cancer-causing franchise destroyer. I understand you don't like him, but I'm sorry, that kind of hyperbole doesn't help the conversation. Calling JJ Jar Jar, calling Bad Robot bad reboot, calling it a cancer. First of all, as a person who had cancer, I don't appreciate that because cancer is serious, and I don't like people turning it into a joke, which people do all the time. But all that aside, J.J. Abrams is capable of making a decent movie. And I know people all of a sudden turn on him like he's this horrible, horrible director. Oh, he's a hack. He's horrible. He doesn't know. You know what? I challenge any of you to do a better job than he did as far as directing a film. Sure, the story I think could have used some tweaking. There are a couple of changes that I will talk about what I would have done a little differently. However, I think the overall arc that he did, bringing Palpatine in to basically be Snoke for the 3rd film, and where he was going with Rey and Kylo was good. I just didn't like the final resolution of it. Larry says, where's my pitchfork? I don't know. And let's see, what was it? Just got up. Do I need to sharpen my pitchfork or can I use it to eat my breakfast? Good morning. Hey, Thundercats. Good to see you. It's better than Last Jedi, but still sucks. Disagree. I think it was better than The Last Jedi. I think it was better than The Force Awakens. I think it was better than The Phantom Menace. I would probably put it about equal with Attack of the Clones or possibly Revenge of the Sith. So I don't think it's by any stretch the worst of Star Wars, and it's actually, and it's not even the second worst. I think last night's Burrito Grande came to me in the middle of the last night as a Force ghost. You can't spoil crap. Well, yes, but I don't think the movie was crap. I just hit now when Rey tells Kylo in the interrogation scene, you'll never be as powerful as Darth Vader. JJ, that sneaky bastard. Yeah? And that's the thing. You can tell watching this movie that some of the stuff was JJ's plan all along. If you go, because I watched The Force Awakens yesterday, and then I watched Last Jedi before I watched this, and I wanted that to be fresh in my mind. And I think that's probably why I like the movie better than a lot of the other people. I saw some of the setup in Force Awakens paid off in this, and I kind of dug it. This movie's plot is equivalent to adjutant keys before an epileptic until he has a seizure. Action, drama, whoop, gotta go, no time to feel, action, MacGuffin, don't think. Well, here's the thing, Luke. Is it briskly paced? Yes. Is it too briskly paced? I think a little bit, yes. And I think the problem is, and I will, I understand that you're just not being as forgiving as I am about it. The problem is that JJ had to rebuild what Ryan destroyed. And so the first 20, 30 minutes of this film are basically just dedicated to rebuilding a baseline to have your story go forward. And he had to do that because he couldn't just go from the end of The Last Jedi. He had to reestablish stuff and set up. Basically, he had to bring Snoke back from the dead. Well, he couldn't just bring Snoke back because they just, took him out like a little bitch. And so he decided to use Palpatine. And I think that was actually a good choice. I'm not seeing Rise of Skywalker on principle. That's your choice, and I don't hold that against you. And let's see. Yep, and I saw. Okay, Zach says I didn't have high expectations. I had zero expectations walking into this film. They had to put the Enterprise in the water and use shuttles because Amazon drones weren't invented in the future yet. Klutz said the old expanded universe had to take place where other galactic species nearly destroys the New Republic. It included the original characters. Okay, but I'm not sure which point is there. Zeke says, well, we saw the exact opposite, but I'm only in the first deaths in the... Let's see. Well, we saw the exact opposite, but only in the first Death Star. Disregard. Not sure what you mean there, Zeke. Bez says, Jar Jar Abrams explains nothing. He's a hack. Bez, look, I understand you don't like Jar Jar. Okay? You want to call him Jar Jar? Fine. Call him Jar Jar. You don't like him. Great. But if you want to bring something to the table, tell me why you think he's so horrible. Just calling him a hack just means that you don't have a reason you don't like him. You just don't like him. Laughable says, wait, Andrew did not hate something. Oh my God. Yes, it does happen. Luke says, don't try to headcanon the movie. Death Star 2 was incomplete and its reactor overheated and blew up. You see the chunks. They're specks. You know how Star Destroyer sized projectiles. I understand what you're saying, Luke. I do. We simply disagree on that. I've seen things that blow up and chunks of it will, if you blow up almost anything, chunks of it are going to be intact. And so they just, that's how they wrote it. And I know they just did it to create the cool ambiance of the location. And so it doesn't matter, if they could have just as easily, if they wanted to go for 100% realism, which, by the way, we're talking about a franchise that is based on space wizards and laser swords, so we can toss that out right off the bat. But if you want to go for 100% realism, they could have gone to the moon of Endor and found, little chunks of debris scattered about a huge area and still had the exact same story points, but it wouldn't have looked as cool. And JJ is a visual storyteller. Quick thoughts on Toto's score to Dune. I have no idea what you're talking about there, Scott. I am behind in the chat, so I'm just reading the stuff addressed directly to me for a couple of minutes, and then I am going to wrap it up here in just a couple more minutes. Maybe Palpatine found out exactly how Darth Plagueis the Wise cheated death and used it. Yes, he does definitely know how Darth Plagueis cheated death. That much, yes, he definitely knows. Male witches are known as witches. Warlock means oathbreaker and is deemed as an insult. Okay. Behave in space. They freaking hit planets and moons like asteroids. There's no way any decently sized chunk would survive as clean. Luke, you're getting... here's the thing. You're getting all worked up over something like physics in a Star Wars movie. A movie that inherently breaks physics routinely and everybody defends it. The existence of the lightsaber is a bigger violation of physics than a chunk of the Death Star surviving the explosion. Carlos says, a film is made by more than one person, and even if they are the top person on the film, they still have to please the people who pay the money. Well, actually, I think that I don't think Kathleen Kennedy liked this movie, to be honest with you. Because, by the way, the other thing is the feminist agenda pretty much gone, which I do appreciate. Morning entry, just prepping to go out, but listening. Hey, Peter, good to see you. Luke says, regarding force powers, there's incremental logic behind their introduction. In 4, we see force choke, force sight, and force ghost is hinted. How does one choke without telekinesis? Well, but, here's another thing. Why, a lot of people were shocked in Return of the Jedi that Luke force choked the pig guards, because everybody was convinced at that time that Force Choke was strictly a dark side power. Well, guess what? No, it's not. Marlena says, better than Force Awakens. Wow, yes, absolutely. I do think it has, the editing problems are worse than Force Awakens, but the visuals and the story is better. Does Kylo turn to the light side? Oh, continue. I'm not going to tell you that. But, I don't know. I don't know if I want to give spoilers this early. I'll tell you what, continue. We'll talk about it if you want, but not right now. I am going to probably save, if I can end up getting on Nerdrotic, I'm sure we'll be talking heavy spoilers there. But on my channel, I'm going to probably save the spoilers for my Monday review. It's good to know it's not SJW garbage. Yes, there is virtually, I mean, in fact, they even dismissed the Holdo maneuver, which I kind of appreciate. There's a line in it where they're talking about this huge fleet of Star Destroyers, and someone says, why don't we just do some Holdo maneuvers to take these things out? And they're like, yeah, that was like a 1 in a million shot. We can't do that every time. Dino says, I agree with you. I didn't hate it. I agree. Equal Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, not a horrible movie, but, no, nothing like the original trilogy. See, they're not new Force powers. They're an extension of what we already know the Force can do. Well, and you know what? What we see as far as in this one is also an extension of what we already knew because of Darth Plagueis, Luke. Darth freaking Plagueis was a long time ago. You remember when Darth Plagueis was talked about? All right, what you saw, the two new powers that we see are a direct extension of the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise. So it should not be a shock that those powers exist. And so I think, yeah. The Eldritch God says, you are insane. I've watched it and it was pure pain. I've started my review and the first 31 minutes has taken an hour. It's going to take me 4 to 4 hours to finish unpacking this train wreck. That's fine if you disagree with me. I think that, now, first of all, the first 31 minutes is probably the worst part of the movie. So that should take at least an hour to break that stuff down because, yeah, it's a mess there. But if you want to hate on it, you go right ahead. I'm not going to hate on it just because I hated The Last Jedi. All right, there's a lot of, and I think that's a big problem in the fandom menace right now. I think a lot of people are hating on this movie because of what happened with The Last Jedi. They have such a bad taste in their mouth that unless this movie was the best movie ever freaking made, they're going to hate it. Does it have usual Abrams mystery box? No, it does not. And in fact, this movie definitely feels like they're trying to wrap things up. Yes, but stop using 8 as an excuse for 9. Judge it alone first, then in context of the trilogy, and then in context of the saga. Luke, can't do that. This is not just called Star Wars. This is called Star Wars Episode 9. You have to put it in context of its trilogy. And I understand that the trilogy is a freaking mess. However, I think that this was a course correction in that mess. It's unfortunate that that this is what we had to do, but you know what? There is no way. The thing is, Luke, if you don't take that into context, then you could say, well, it should have been just as good as Empire Strikes Back, except that it didn't have a setup like Empire did. Should have been just as good as Return of the Jedi. Didn't have the setup Return of the Jedi had. You can't judge it based solely on itself in isolation because it is, in fact, the third chapter of a trilogy. And so it has to follow what came before it. And that is a part of how you have to review it. You have to look at the fact that he's got to deal with the fact that Luke abandoned the Force and lived on Ahch-To for all those years. And I like the fact that Luke acknowledged that was the wrong thing to do. Palpatine's biggest flaw across these trilogies is that he couldn't turn his electrical shocks off. Sorry for the repeated retractions. Dyslexia is bad in the morning. I understand, Thundercats. No biggie. The film paralleled Return of the Jedi, but had a lot of rush scenes and character development and connection could be improved. I don't think it paralleled Return of the Jedi. I think there were some similarities, but I don't think it paralleled Return of the Jedi. I know a lot of people are going to try to draw up every little thing they can to try and make it sound like it's the same as Return of the Jedi. It isn't. If it was, then you would have Kylo and Rey fighting in front of the Emperor in the final big dramatic battle while the Rebel fleet flew into a trap. That's not at all how the final sequence went down. Yes, there was a space battle while the Emperor was confronting Rey. But that's not the same thing. The context of both the Palpatine confrontation and the space battle were radically different. During one of your Star Trek and Star Wars, you said something along the lines of, unless they could mount Death Star lasers on Star Destroyers, they don't stand a chance. You gave them ideas. Yes, I think I did. Yeah. Don't know if you talked about it, but does this destroy Anakin Luke legacy in your eyes? No, but I think we needed more Anakin in this movie. And I'll get into that in the future. Luke says, alone, this movie doesn't make sense. In its own trilogy, the movie is broken, and the whole saga of the movie undermines it. First of all, I think alone, the only movie in the Star Wars saga that makes sense alone is the 1977 Star Wars. All right, because all of the rest require knowledge of prior film to really get what's going on. Maybe you could argue the Phantom Menace, but even that, it feels like if you don't know who Palpatine is and stuff, it's kind of messes with you a little bit. As far as in its trilogy, this movie is broken. No, in this trilogy, The Last Jedi is broken, and this movie is trying to course correct. And the whole saga of this movie undermines it. Again, the funny thing is, Luke, you're assigning blame to this movie for what The Last Jedi did. But they're not just chunks in this movie. It's like 20% intact. First of all, no, it's nowhere near 20%. It's one section of maybe, I'd say maybe about 5% of the outer hull and nothing of the interior except for, and so, no, it's not like 20% intact. I know you don't like the chunk, but it's really not, you're making it a bigger deal than it is, Luke, and I think that you're just hating to hate it. I don't mind the new force powers or Rey taking on the Skywalker name. That made sense to me. I actually did not like Rey taking on the Skywalker name. But I'll get into that in my review because I think the last line should have been very different. I'll be happy if it has a mystery box and lightsaber fights. It does not have a mystery box. It does have some interesting lightsaber action. In fact, I got to say, the Rey v. Rey fight was actually interesting. What about the horses? You like it? You really should read about World War II and destroying of Warsaw, capital in Poland. Well, as far as the space horses, I think that I understand what they were trying to do with that, and I don't object to the idea, but I think that it looked silly. And so, yeah. I always thought of the lightsaber would be controlled by the Force, which is why only Force users had them well into the new films. Wrong answer, Carlo. Wrong answer. Han freaking Solo used Luke's lightsaber in Empire Strikes Back. Luke used Anakin's lightsaber before he even knew what the Force was. So no, there is absolutely zero to establish that only Force users can use a lightsaber. I don't think we could call it Force choke. It's all just telekinesis. Okay. In the EU, Palpatine used clones to house his souls and swaps bodies quickly. They couldn't handle his vast amount of power. Palpatine's power level is freaking through the roof in this. And I think some people that are fans of the EU should appreciate that. The existence of a lightsaber works as if it's plasma. Nobody states what it is. However, everybody knows what happens when things are vaporized and thrown into a planet's atmosphere. Ah, Luke, you were really worked up on that. I don't understand why. I genuinely don't understand why. You have no problem with all the craziness that happens in the prior Star Wars films, but the fact that a chunk of the Death Star survived and crashed, you can't get past. The biggest, strongest construction project ever made, and a chunk survived. A chunk. And, yeah, and besides that, here's the thing, and this is what people threw at me. Whenever I complain about something and people would say, oh, Anti-Trek, you're nitpicking. You know what they say? Will of the Force. Well, it's the will of the Force that section survived, and that's why we had the magic dagger, and that's why we had the map to go there, and that's why the thing that they needed was there.
Hello.
And Continuum puts $5.49 in. Thank you so much. Does Kylo turn the light? Tell me, I'm paying for it. Dance, monkey, dance. All right. So if you don't want to know about the ultimate fate of Kylo Ren, please tune out now. I am going to wrap up the chat in just a couple minutes anyway. So tune out now if you don't want any spoilers. Spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. Tune out. Go away. We're going to talk spoilers right now. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, Kylo turns to the light. And it's actually well done. and Leia is a big part of that. So I actually think it's well done. However, I still think the ending should have been very different. I'll tell you, here's what I wanted the end to be. I think that at the end of the movie, Kylo is dead, Rey is alive. Rey goes to Luke's home on Tatooine and says, and is looking around. She buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers together in the sands of Tatooine. And this random person says, "Who the hell are you?" And she says, "Rey." And she says, "Rey who?" And she says, "Rey Skywalker." And that's the end of the movie. I think Rey should have died, and it should have been Kylo, and then he should have buried the sabers and said, "My name is Ben Skywalker." That should have been the end of the movie. Rise of Skywalker should have been about Ben effing Skywalker, not Rey stealing his name. That's just my opinion. Darth Plagueis couldn't save himself from death. He could not do what Palpy does to that fleet, and the Force isn't an energy drink once that one can empty from his own bottle to fill a glass. Again, Luke, first of all, Darth Plagueis couldn't save himself because he was betrayed by his apprentice. He was murdered. All right. Now, as far as... But what Darth Plagueis could do is use the Force to manipulate life and death. He could stop people from dying, he said. And we find out how that works. You can stop people from dying by transmitting some of your energy into that person. We saw Baby Yoda do it. We saw Rey do it. And Palpatine could obviously do it. The opposite of that would also be logically possible. If you can transfer your life energy to someone else using the Force, it would also be logical that you could transfer their energy to you, draining their life energy and restoring yourself, which we see Palpy do. I don't have a problem with that. It falls right into the story of Darth Plagueis. It felt like the ending scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark borrowed in Rise of Skywalker. I'm not sure why. I meant the music Toto did for the 80s David Lynch Dune. Oh, yeah, I like the music in Dune, in the 80s Dune. I think I saw from the Geeks and Gamers that Hayden was pissed off over this movie. Well, they did use, and that's one thing I thought was cool, but needed a little more, is that everybody in the Star Wars franchise who played a Jedi had a brief voiceover in the final battle, and I thought it was really cool the way they did that. It was nice to see R2-D2 and C-3PO doing more. Sadly, this wasn't done throughout the trilogy. True. And I actually, yeah, C-3PO, really, this was his biggest movie. I could have dealt with a little less C-3PO, but I thought he was all right. I'm not making a bigger deal out of it. I'm just limited in what I can talk about in a single chat message. Want to talk about the Force teleportation across the galaxy? Well, first of all, that was established in The Last Jedi, not in this. So you can't blame this one for something they showed in The Last Jedi. Because that's already established canon. And JJ, again, is just working with what he had. And the way that they used it, I thought was really clever, particularly at the end when Rey passed the saber over to Kylo. That was actually pretty cool. Han used it to cut open an animal. Yes. It could have been just a beam like a laser beam, but yes. Yeah, there's nothing that says that. And Peter's muted it because we're talking spoilers. Have a good night, but we'll be back to argue about chunks of the Death Star. I'm sure you will, and I'm going to probably have to do an entire video about chunks of the Death Star. It seems like had a lot of Episode 2-like plot contrivances, but with the JJ aesthetic. He also doesn't seem to get the mythic storytelling, even if he restored the magical veneer to the universe. I think that's a good point. His mythic storytelling, that's just, as far as the feel and flavor of it, you're right. It didn't feel like it, but you could tell he was trying to get that back in. And that's probably why I'd say good, not great. Did they show anywhere in the movie the relief effort by the rebels to help the poor irradiated Ewoks of Endor, those poor little bastards? No. So I'll probably see you on Sunday. Off to see Mom. All right, Peter, take care. And let's see. Almost Luke's. Gene says, Luke, you are right. Anti-Trekker, not. Okay. Peter says, see ya. Kiss says, agree. Ben should have been the one who lived, and Chewie should have gotten the Millennium Falcon, not Rey. Yes, but actually, Rey didn't get the Millennium Falcon. If anybody, there are two people that were basically in charge of the Falcon in this movie. One was Poe, and the other was Lando, and I didn't have a problem with either one of them. Basically, Rey wins alone against Palpy, who kills himself. but then gets saved by Kylo doing some kind of silly force transfer that he never learned to do. Remember the training problem? Well, the training problem they kind of dealt with in the beginning of this film. If you're paying attention, you would realize, of course, that Rey completed her training under Master Leia, who, yes, it was something of a retcon, but at least it helps explain the Mary Poppins scene that Leia was indeed a Jedi Master. And yes, they have a flashback showing, and it was unfortunately bad CGI, but they showed young Luke and young Leia training together in a flashback. No, training problem was actually addressed. Or are you talking about Kylo's training? In which case, you remember, Kylo spent some time with Palpy at the beginning of this film. So that's probably where he learned to do that kind of stuff. Only illusions exist in The Last Jedi, not actual matter. Not true, Luke. In The Last Jedi, in fact, that was a big moment in the movie, is the water droplets. So, I'm sorry. That was real. You want to argue about it? We can argue about it all day. It was freaking real. Rey has the Millennium Falcon on Tatooine. No, Rey didn't have the Millennium Falcon. The junk trader had it, and Rey stole it from him. No. Neither Leia nor Luke learned how to save others from death, only Plagueis and his apprentice. Well, first of all, we know that others have learned how to at least heal. The Force healing ability has been around at least for, 20-odd years, because Baby Yoda was able to do it instinctively. So Lando is back with his old flame, huh? Well, yeah, kind of. Hey, I'm a recently new sub of yours, and I don't know that much, so I don't know how much of a Star Wars fan you are, but I want to point out a few things, if you'll allow me, with total respect. Well, Tom, be quick about it, because I do need to wrap it up. It's very late. It's after 4 o'clock in the morning for me, and I got to get up in just a few hours. So, Thomas, if you can type it in quickly, I will respond, but you got to be fast about it. Thomas is telling me to go to bed. I know, Thomas. I want to give the other Thomas a chance, though. No, again, nothing confirms the drops or anything but illusions. No, you're just making up that they're illusions because you don't want it to be real. There is nothing to indicate that it's just an illusion. The dice was not Luke transferring something. Luke was a freaking Skype call, and the dice were part of the Skype call. That's a different scenario completely. Not Jakku. Rey has the Falcon at the end of Rise of Skywalker. Oh, at the end of Rise of Skywalker, she has Luke Skywalker's X-Wing. Why does Palps ask Kylo to kill Rey in the beginning? What if he actually did it? Palps would have kind of been SOL because he knew that he couldn't do it. He knew how powerful she was. I went to the beginning of your stream and watched the first 20 minutes of it. You only named Luke and Anakin once, briefly and indirectly. This was the Skywalker saga, right? How come? Well, actually, that's something that I didn't like about it, but it's a Skywalker saga because Rey is the final Skywalker, even though she's a Palpatine, which I didn't like that. I think it should have been about Ben Skywalker, but they kind of dropped that. How did Rey take finding out you're her dad? She was honored and amazed, and it was the most beautiful moment in her life. And with that, we are going to wrap it up, guys. So take care. It is very late. Either I will be streaming myself or on somebody else's live stream tonight. Check my Twitter if you don't see me streaming tonight, and we will talk about it. So take care. And I know you're going to fight me to the death, Luke, but I'm sorry, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Luke holding the dice was different because Luke himself was a projection. He was not actually at any time physically on Crate. But, and he didn't, and so, yeah. And he left the dice on the Falcon. They were a Force-created illusion. They were never, he never had them because he left them on the Falcon. Anyway, guys, take care. Have a good one. Don't let the bed bugs bite and all that crap. Laughable Larry, you jerk, trying to stop me from getting any rest. If you want a super chat reward, I will play it. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to the credits in about 30 seconds if you don't tell me. I give Fall of Skywalker a steaming 2 out of 10. Bradley's being mean. Star Wars 9 didn't fix Star Wars 8's mess. It made things even worse. Well, Luke, we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that. I don't think that it fixed everything that Episode 8 screwed up, but I don't think it made things worse. And in fact, it tried to fix some of the problems. And so, Laughable, you gotta pick something. Dealer's choice. All right. Well, in that case, we're gonna do my favorite. And Bradley, yes, we can always agree to disagree. That's what I like about the folks on this channel, and that's what we're going to have to do on this one. Then that's okay. I mean, I'll make my arguments, you make yours, and in the end, it's entertainment. Entertainment is subjective. So if you don't like it, that doesn't make you a better person or a worse person. It just means that we have a difference in taste. I think that Luke is overstating some problems. Like when he says, tries to fix it, fails miserably by making it worse. I don't see how this movie made anything worse. But, I mean, was this movie perfect? No. This movie had problems? Absolutely, and I've said so. That's why I said I liked it, didn't love it. But make it worse? I don't think that it would be pretty damn difficult to make it worse than Last Jedi. I need spinning Spock for Christmas. I wish I had one. Laughable Larry puts a $1.99 and just says, yes. Yes? To what? Now I'm completely confused. And so, Laughable Larry, do you want me to play something, or you just wanted to say yes? Because I'm completely and utterly confused. And now Laughable Larry's not saying anything, so I'll give you till go to sleep. All right. All right, my friends. Take care. Have a good one. And have a whatever day, night. I'll see you guys later.
You son of a bitch, anti-tracker! 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 You son of a